The sun over Falardo Beach, Florida was not a cheerful, life-affirming orb. It was an angry, brassy searchlight designed to illuminate every poor decision made between the hours of midnight and noon. For Detective Elias Eli Thorne, a man whose resting state was a mixture of mild existential dread and a desperate need for espresso, the springtime migration of students known as spring break was less a season and more a psychological torture chamber. Eli was a criminal profiler by trade and expert in the meticulous architecture of the fractured mind. His current assignment, however, involved less gazing into the abyss and more gazing at fluorescent green vomit and young adults attempting to use pool noodles as musical instruments. 2.2 million, Eli muttered, adjusting the ill-fitting, slightly damp cotton suit jacket he wore over a perpetually wrinkled shirt. He leaned against the reinforced doorframe of the Falardo PD's temporary beach annex, a glorified shipping container painted in a shade of optimistic teal, and watched the sand. 2.2 million potential career-defining mistakes, Sergeant. It's glorious. Sergeant Dale Bulldog Benson, a man whose neck was wider than Eli's head and whose default expression suggested he was perpetually smelling burnt toast, merely grunted. Bulldog was old-school patrol immune to Eli's analytical cynicism. It's revenue, Thorne. Keeps the lights on. And right now, your glorious mistake makers are breaking rule number 1. No open containers, no large coolers, no tents, no tables. It's like they read the sign and thought it was a scavenger hunt checklist. Eli's actual case file, a thick, meticulously tabbed volume concerning a transnational identity theft ring operating under the delightful moniker The Conch Crew, lay dormant on his desk. The ring had been using the chaos of the Florida coast, from Navarre Beach's placid tranquility to Key West's chaotic hedonism, to launder money and distribute a bespoke cocktail of designer street drugs. But today, his focus was diluted by the demands of the season. I'm telling you, Sergeant, it's all connected. Eli insisted, not believing it for a second. The decision to wear that neon bikini, the psychological need to funnel cheap beer through a plastic dolphin, it's a cry for help. A pre-criminal act. It's all rooted in poor self-esteem, which drives the need for quick, ill-gotten dopamine, which leads to identity theft. I'm just cutting off the root of the crime tree, one underage drinker at a time. Bulldog just pointed. Go cut off that root, smart guy. Officer Correa needs backup. Looks like a classic we're flight attendants scenario. Eli sighed, pulling on a pair of aviator sunglasses that made him look like a disappointed 1,980 seconds film director. The sunbathers in question were a quartet of young women, all sporting tans that looked suspiciously spray-applied and holding brightly colored plastic cups that hummed with a distinct aroma of cheap vodka and desperation. Officer Maria Correa, a young officer whose patience was tested daily by the sheer volume of idiotic defenses she encountered, was already mid-interview. She was calm, professional, and slightly terrifying in necessary demeanor when dealing with 4 people who insisted the beach rules did not apply to locals who were professional flight attendants. I'm sorry, but if you have alcohol on the beach, you have to dispose of it, Correa was saying, her voice pitched just below the frenetic roar of a nearby jet ski. But the lady said we could bring it on the beach. The first girl, Wisconsin, protested her tone. A blend of outrage and misplaced entitlement. Eli sauntered up, offering a tired half smile. Ah, the mythical beach lady. A true Florida legend. She wanders the coastline dispensing contradictory legal advice and probably handing out free koozies. Officer Correa, I believe the statute is very clear. Unless the lady is present to confirm the dispensation of said beach drinking privileges, we must assume standard ordinance applies. Wisconsin glowered, "Who are you?" The sarcasm police. Precisely, Eli said, tipping his sunglasses. Detective Thorne, Falardo PD. Now flight attendants, a truly noble profession. Tell me, are you on a layover, or is this a scheduled emergency landing into a massive group of poor decisions? The girls immediately sobered up. The one who claimed to be from Pennsylvania suddenly seemed fascinated by a tiny seashell. We live here now, another girl, Pennsylvania, mumbled. We're locals. Fantastic. Then you know the rules even better. You were attempting to sneak shooters past one of the few places in America where a law enforcement officer has to deal with a 3-day-old sandcastle before they get to a felony. We appreciate the challenge truly. Eli leaned in conspiratorially. Here's the thing, I don't care about the booze. I care about the IDs. You look like lovely, upstanding citizens. I just need to verify your ages to ensure we're not contributing to a truly egregious act of parental disappointment. After a brief, dramatic search, the girls ages 19 and 20 produced their identification. Eli verified the ages the alcohol was poured out, and the situation was diffused with a simple warning. It was dull, anticlimactic police work, the antithesis of the cerebral battles he lived. Thank you, Detective Correa said, logging the incident into her tablet. Your unique blend of passive aggression and professional courtesy is noted. Just doing my part to manage the collective anxiety of the nation's youth officer. And honestly, flight attendants. They couldn't have picked a more exhausting, less believable job. Should have gone with trapeze artists or amateur taxidermists. Higher credibility. Later that afternoon, the mundane escalated into the deeply strange. The next contact was a street vendor, a local legend known only as the Cocktail Alchemist. The Alchemist, a man with a surprisingly stylish straw hat and a terrifyingly intense gaze, was hawking what he called artisanal beach shooters, homemade concoctions distributed in tiny plastic cups. The raw footage described him as being super nice and having a glass eye at detail. Eli found far more disturbing than the illegal alcohol. Correa was dealing with this one too. The Alchemist was explaining his marketing strategy with unnerving enthusiasm. It's viral, officer. For every follower I get on the gram, it's like a free shot. I'm monetizing my community engagement. It's supply and demand, baby. And look, I'm using recycled plastic. You cannot sell or give away homemade alcohol on the beach, sir. We don't know the ingredients, Correa stated plainly, pointing to a small handwritten sign that read, "Warning may contain joy," and or trace elements of regret. Eli approached, smelling the concoction. It smelled faintly of tropical fruit cheap grain alcohol and the kind of industrial cleaner used in public restrooms. Detective Thorne Eli introduced himself. The Cocktail Alchemist. I admire the entrepreneurial spirit truly, but you're essentially running a mobile, unregulated, potentially lethal chemistry experiment on a public beach. The Alchemist beamed, seemingly impervious to the threat of citation. It's art, man. It's all about the experience. My baby, I call this one the tidal wave of tomorrow. It's got passion fruit, a hint of mint, and a secret ingredient. That secret ingredient wouldn't happen to be paint thinner, would it, Eli asked? Just a little dash of the unknown, you know. Keeps the people guessing. The Alchemist leaned closer, lowering his voice. Look, Officer Detective, I know the rules. I'm just trying to make a little money. Keep the vibe alive. You gotta appreciate the hustle. Eli studied the man's eyes. The glass eye was disconcerting, giving him a perpetually fixed, slightly off-kilter intensity. But it was the other eye, the living one, that gave Eli pause. It wasn't the eye of a hustler, it was the eye of an observer. The Alchemist wasn't just selling drinks, he was watching the exchange rates, the foot traffic, the security patrols. He was collecting data under the guise of an idiotic street performer. Psych profile note, not a simple bootlegger. High-level social scanning and risk assessment. The hustle is a cover for observation. Tell me, Alchemist, do you ever get customers who aren't entirely focused on the party, people who are interested in discretion, maybe people who ask about something a little more structured than your tidal wave of tomorrow, Eli asked, using the coded language he had developed for the Conch crew investigation. The crew is known for distributing their illicit goods in novelty drink containers to blend into the spring break scene. The Alchemist paused, his smile momentarily failing. The glass eye stared out over the ocean, the living eye met Eli's. Everyone's focused on the party, Detective. That's the beauty of spring break. It's a distraction. A beautiful, loud, drunken distraction, except for the squares like you guys who are only focused on the rules. He gestured to his cart. Take the warning. I'm going home. I'm a follower-seeker, not a troublemaker. Correa issued the verbal warning, confiscating the remaining shooters. As the Alchemist packed up, Eli watched him make a discreet, almost imperceptible hand signal toward a distant, innocuous-looking cooler rental stand. He's lying, Officer, Eli murmured to Correa. He's running a drop point. Those homemade shooters aren't just grain alcohol. They're coded messages or maybe sample packs for the low-grade stuff. The high grade is in the rental cooler. We gave him a warning, Detective. We can't just 132 inches bush. I've got him at gunpoint. Okay, gunpoint 132 inches bush. Covers code 3. Will send. The urgent clipped voice burst from Correa's radio, shattering the beach's ambient noise. The code was clear: a high-risk traffic stop requiring immediate backup location, 132 inches bush, a nondescript stretch of road bordering the city's dense mangrove swamp. The trivialities of spring break vanished. The cocktail alchemist who had been lazily pushing his cart froze his gaze fixed on the radio. His composure had cracked. That's Officer Bush's jurisdiction, Correa said, her hand instantly moving to the radio and the sidearm at her hip. We need to roll. Eli didn't hesitate. The alchemist's sudden, genuine alarm confirmed Eli's intuition the two events were linked. The conch crew had hit a snag. The distraction had failed, and now they were in the middle of a high-risk encounter. Forget the coolers, Officer Eli said, his previous cynical weariness replaced by a sharp, focused intensity. Let's go see what's so important about the intersection of 132 and Bush that they're drawing guns. The drive from the beach to the mangrove swamp was a jarring transition from neon-drenched superficiality to oppressive, humid darkness. Officer Bush, a veteran patrolman known for his quiet, meticulous nature and an unnervingly calm demeanor in a crisis, had a vehicle, a beat-up dark blue sedan, pulled over on the narrow, overgrown road. Bush, built like a fire hydrant, stood behind his open-door sidearm, drawn and aimed his posture textbook perfect. The scene was static, silent, except for the buzzing of unseen insects. Falardo PD, backing up Correa, announced over the radio as she pulled up and positioned her cruiser strategically. The driver's door of the stopped sedan was slightly ajar. A single trembling hand gripped the steering wheel. Eli, without drawing his weapon, he preferred to rely on observation and verbal control, approached slowly, taking in the scene. Officer Bush was focused on the driver, but Eli's profiler instincts immediately scanned the passenger side. The vehicle, late model, clean rental. Out of place. The stop Bush's car was positioned perfectly. This wasn't a random traffic stop. Bush had been hunting this vehicle. The driver. The trembling hand was a tell. Fear, but also hesitation, waiting for a cue. Driver, put your hands clearly on the steering wheel, palms up. Bush commanded, his voice a low, steady rumble. The driver, a young man who looked far too clean-cut for the location, slowly complied. It's okay, officer. I just don't talk. I said, hands on the wheel. Bush cut him off, a sharp edge in his tone. Eli circled toward the passenger